acted by Regina Pachisi. Okay. Here's the main job. Be ready for the next motion. Intense and threatening as it is, we would like to welcome you. Our heading and the topic of this, okay, it's exploding. It's not threatening anymore. Can anyone guess what the heading is?
Terrorist.
All right, there you go. Correct. Now we are going to debate about the motion in the topic of terrorism. Motion number 1. This House would give financial support to the convict of terrorists under rehabilitation program. Number 2, this House support the extrajudicial killing by that state where there is strong reason to convict that they are involved in the planning, carrying out terrorism activities, and arrest is not possible, such as, but not limited to, carrying a suspicious bag and trying to barge it in place of worship, such in the case of Makassar Cathedral Church suicide bombing. And motion number 3, this House regret the campaign of disassociating terrorism is as being driven by the teaching of religion. Before we proceed to the case building session, is there any wording that you would like to clarify with regards to these motions? Please let us know. Please read carefully and let me know should you have any concern. No question being raised? No questions? All right. Let's just proceed to the debaters' chambers. The committee will assign you to your respective rooms, and then the adjudicator will help you out to decide the motions. Best of luck, everyone.
Hi, time is up. Let's do a quick roll call. Regina Patches A, are you complete?
Complete.
And then Canisius A, are you complete?
Canisius kurang orang.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Let's wait for 2 minutes before we start. But before that, please give me your speaker position first, okay? In the chat box, all of you. Canisius A, are you complete? Canisius, are you there?
Hello?
Are you complete? Hi, are you complete, Canisius A?
Complete.
Complete. Okay. So without the further ado, congratulations and welcome to the semifinal round. Yeah. To open the debate, let's recall upon the Prime Minister. Here.
Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The cases of terrorists barging into church and killing is already too many at school, right? Just because not all such acts are terrorism acts doesn't mean we cannot act. Because the moment human lives are in the balance, it's the time that we need to do desperate measures in order to prevent more lives from being killed. So proud to propose. What's our stance as government, right? We support extrajudicial killing done by the state. So because our goals, we want a better procedure and actually taking care of these kinds of terrorist acts instead of just letting the harm actually unfold first, then just prosecute them. We want to do a preemptive measure in actually avoiding these kinds of acts from being done. 2 points of mechanism in my speech. Firstly, on what this is look like under the ground. First, points. Firstly, the state will offer protection services like police and military in places where terrorist acts are prone to happen, like churches and mosques, and etc. Secondly, this means any suspicious actions will be instantly shot without any hesitation, right? The parameters of being suspicious is that you follow, it's not when you follow, given procedures, when you don't answer questions, or when you carry suspicious objects already enough in actually like enough reason to analyze that at the end of the day that's actually suspicious, right? Third point, the state will install body cameras in prosecutors, so there's still going to be check and balances and actually there's child mass supervision and actually knowing what these prosecutors do towards these people. And fourthly, there will be check and balances there will still be prosecutions done to these people who shot these terrorists or not, if they actually did the procedure with a proper method or not. So second point, this debate is about either arresting or killing these suspicious people inside the status quo in this debate. So 2 points of argumentation for debate. Firstly, on why this extrajudicial killing is justifiable, and secondly, on why this act is actually beneficial at the end of the day. Firstly, on why this extrajudicial killing is justifiable. 3 layers of analysis. Firstly, I'm going to characterize. Firstly, on why these terrorists are actually hard to predict. Within a terrorists, as much as they are unpredictable, right? Terrorists are not criminals or like masterminds who actually have a comprehensive plan in actually achieving something. They're not thieves, they're not like murderers or something. They're just people who want to do terror no matter what the procedure. It's literally in their names, right? What does this mean? It means they have no care for their lives. That's why suicide bombings actually happens. Why is that so? Because all they care about is telling the world about their so-called message at the end of the day, without any care about repercussions and etc. Right? This is going to be bad because if no one can actually predict what terrorists can do, it's much more justifiable. We actually kill them on the spot when they do acts in order to actually stop from even more chaos from unraveling, right? Because from the moment these terrorists are unpredictable and they start to do actions, when it's going to be much harder for you to stop them. For example, if they already triggered their bomb, or for example, if they already like shot multiple people at once, we think it's going to be much harder to actually tackle down if that actually happened after that, right? But second layer, why is this justifiable without the judge actually deciding in the court? We think it's a special case in terrorism because it all happens in a single moment, right? Let's see what the implication of this. We did not when you hesitate and actually bring them down, the harm is already done, right? You failed to save people who actually needed saving in the beginning because it's already going to take much longer time when you try to like drag them to court, for example, to actually have a jury waiting for them. It's going to be much harder in opposition if they want to try like arresting them first at the end of the day, right? So we think it's going to be much better. It's still justifiable because at least we are actually doing this with a good intent to actually preempt these kinds of people who are actually killing even more people, right? And I think the society in such school actually understand that happening, and wouldn't actually be against us in this matter because of how the lives of many people are in the balance, right? But last layer analysis on a firm belief. Let's just engage in their best case scenario where they successfully arrest these people and want to interrogate them the moment they go to court. Because counterproductive. Why is that so? Let's characterize terrorism for a minute, right? Typically, they have an undying loyalty to the leaders, for example. They have an undying loyalty to the leaders of Al-Qaeda, of ISIS, for example. That loyalty means that they have very little incentive to actually tell people to tell people about their plans, for example. This means that they would rather die than actually giving out information that could relate to how these people relate to certain vital points, for example. What does this mean? It means that there's no comparative benefit under a side opposition if they actually try to arrest this, right? Because it's still the same outcome. It's still the same outcome where these terrorists are not going to say anything in both sides. But what's the difference, right? Under our side, we actually give a much better approach because we can engage in the worst and the best case, engage the worst case scenario where these people are actually that volatile and that dangerous, right? The best benefit that opposition can come out with is when these terrorists actually fail to do their crimes. We think that our side is much more justifiable because we're able to have a more holistic approach in these kinds of things, right? So at the end of the day, we think that extrajudicial killing is in fact justifiable under our side of the house. But second argument on why this act is actually beneficial. What do you get under our side of the house? We provide a much better preemptive measures actually saving the people, right? What does this mean? It means that we're not trying to cut corners, or example, take risks. When it comes to terrorism, we are going to act as surely as possible in order to avoid so many lives from being taken, right? But we can see that it's not a total guarantee, that we can't say that both sides cannot offer a total guarantee at the end of the day. But even if I would say that we're at risk of killing innocent people, we already told you on why it will be prevented under two things. Firstly, people wouldn't act, like suspiciously or like recklessly when it comes to dangerous places where it's sensitive to terrorist acts, right? Don't think that people are that stupid to actually, carry a big bag and just expect us to not be suspicious, right? That's already a given in such score right now. But secondly, we already told you how these are qualified soldiers who actually have check and balances at the end of the day. So even if these people actually kill innocent people, it's still totally okay with us, because at the very least, in the near future, we actually prevent so much more things from happening, and it's going to be much better under our side of the house, given the trade-off. So proud to propose.
Thank you for the speech. Now, to open the case coming from the oppositions, let's recall upon the leader of opposition. Here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. This house doesn't support extrajudicial killing by that state, but there is strong reason to convict that they are involved in planning or carrying out terrorism activities, and arrest is not possible, such as but not limited to carrying a suspicious bag and trying to barge in place of worship. One of them examples are the case of bombing at Makassar Cathedral Church suicide. Wow. As you know, extrajudicial killing, also known as extrajudicial execution, is the killing of a person by governmental authorities without the sanction or any judicial proceeding or legal process. They often target political threat, union, dissident, religious, and social figures. Extrajudicial killing is very not humanly, because we all know killing is very against religious beliefs. There are a lot of verses that it's told, and besides it being not really against religious matters, it's also very unhumanly to do extrajudicial killing. Instead, we should give some sort of punishment, such as life sentences, or maybe send the patient to a rehabilitation center, which is a more human way to do. And in some countries like China, the execution or extrajudicial killing still happen, but most countries don't apply this. So because they think about the effects of extrajudicial killing to the society. Replying to your first speaker, he said that you can't change someone who is loyal to some sort of cult like ISIS. But in my opinion, you can't assume that, because maybe the terrorists, that maybe they're forced to do it. Maybe their terrorist acts is caused by something like being threatened. So the terrorist is forced to do it. You can't simply assume that people is not stupid to act suspiciously. So the end goal for our house is to stop extrajudicial killing and give alternatives that are more humanly. Even if the accused does something terrible, such as the bombing that happens in Makassar. Extrajudicial killing should wait. So is there any POI or so in my opinion, extrajudicial killing wait. Extrajudicial killing must be stopped, and it should be the end goal for us and also for every country, is to stop extrajudicial killing, especially in the countries that still that extrajudicial still happen, like China or maybe other countries. And we must stop it so it doesn't come to Indonesia, like for example, the one that happens just recently at Makassar. Uh, uh, if there isn't any POIs, that's all for my speech, I think. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech. Now to continue and respond the case coming from the governments, let's we call upon Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Let me set my timer. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. One clarification before I move on to my point. Notice that team opposition is framing this debate to whether or not it's justified to kill guilty people or not to kill them. We believe that this debate should talk about whether or not when you actually kill these kinds of people and when we actually prosecute these kinds of people. So killing prosecuted people will still already exist under side opposition, right? The moment they still have these kinds of things such as the death penalty. So we don't see why they're just giving us the harms of actually killing people in the prosecutive system when under their side of the house, they will still have that too. So now let's move on to the points that I'm going to bring in today's debate. I would divide my debate into 2 points. Firstly, on why it's still justified under our side to actually kill these terrorists, and second point on why we still have the preemptive methods to avoid worse outcomes. So let's move on to the first point on why it's still justified under our side of the house to actually kill these kinds of terrorists. So team opposition only defense into why it's unjustified for us to actually kill these kinds of terrorists on the spot is that it's against many religions. Firstly, I think that if they want to fly with this argument and if they want to fly with this case, they actually need to prove why under their side of the house, death penalty isn't against these kinds of religions, right? Because we know that under their side of the house, death penalty is still going to happen nonetheless. The only difference is if we compare death penalty to what we are proposing is that the time sensitivity and that judicial system will come to play. But second response, we don't think that religious verses are actually relevant to this debate panels because we believe that under this debate, we should actually talk about the safety of the people and what the people will actually do whenever there are a presumed terrorists, right? So we don't see why these kinds of beliefs and religion are going to matter inside of the state. But even if let's just say that these kinds of religions are already does matter in this debate, we say that okay, we can see that these kinds of things are not aligned with the religion. But please consider, panel, that these kinds of terrorists are the ones who are going to kill hundreds of people, and that's going to be more not aligned with these kinds of religion. So we say that under our side actually aligns more with the religion. The moment we save lots of people's life from these kinds of murder and genocide that these terrorists can actually do. But next, opposition that said that killing under our side of the house, we are killing victims of doctrination and they are forced to do it. But we say that one response to this, we say that it's still justified practice. Why? Firstly, I think that victims of doctrination or not, it's still not eligible for us to actually prosecute them using the normal criminal justice system. Firstly, exactly because they're already that doctrinated. We say that this means that the criminal justice system cannot even do anything more to actually reform them and change them into a normal citizen. Right? But instead, what will happen if we actually prosecute and follow the team opposition side? There are only two bad scenarios and two harms that can happen inside opposition. First, when they're only put in prison for a certain amount of years, and second, and the best scenario is that they're just going to put the terrorists in life in prison. So let's move on to the first scenario on when they only want to put this terrorist for an X amount of years. This will still be harmful panels because the moment these kinds of terrorists are then going to be released after the sentence, they will just go back to their roots over again. They cannot be reformed and they can't even be a productive part of society anymore because their definition is already that deep. But let's take a look at the second scenario, which is the best scenario of their case, where they're just going to put these kinds of terrorists in jail forever, which is life in prison. Kind of notice that this is still harmful, right? Yeah, sure, they still get the benefit in our side of the house of these people not being able to do terrorist acts anymore and to harm the society, but their side is still wasting precious state resources panels. Notice that these kinds of resources can actually be used as welfare or as help to the poor under our side of the house, where we actually can just kill them on the spot and remove them without any care needing to be put in to them and to take care of them in the prison in the future. But secondly, even if you can buy the argument, my first reasoning, notice that these people will still have the capability to hurt and become a danger to people anyways, right? Just because they're quote-unquote victims, it doesn't mean that they can't do the actions that the leader and the doctrinators can actually do. So we say that the moment it's already harmful, we say it's going to be justified for us to actually kill these people. But thirdly, I think it's already justified panel the moment that these types of doctrinated people are actually already having a goal to actually die to follow their terrorism needs, right? Suicide bombers, for example. So I think their mindset of their value of life is already different than ours, and they're already ready to actually die, and it's actually better under our side of the house where we actually just kill them and stop them from actually doing malicious acts. So what's the conclusion under our side of the house? Under our side of the house, we will create a more efficient system where it's justified to actually kill the sussed out terrorists. So let's move on to the second point on why we actually provide a more effective economic allocation, and it's still within the interest of the society. So let's engage the best case scenario where these kinds of terrorists are able to actually change through so many investments that are done by the state, and the state is just magically this being that can just change these kinds of people's doctrination from years and years of doctrination from their leaders, and these people can clearly still be reformed. We think that these kinds of things are not still going to be becoming the interest of the vast majority of people panels, because why is this likely, right? Notice that there's still a dominant narrative where terrorists are still seen as bad people, and even though they are already reformed, even though they're still into rehab. So we don't see a scenario where they actually can create jobs. They are still already accepted in the society. They're not because that's imaginative thinking of everyone as just going to accept you the moment you say that, oh, I'm already innocent after I went through the rehabilitation, and people will instead just give these people stigma where they say that, oh, this is not, you're still dangerous, you're still unpredictable, and the people won't even accept them anyways, right? So why is this important? This means that society is still going to hate them nonetheless, no matter the amount of them actually becoming quote unquote fixed and actually quote unquote rehab, right? And secondly, they also still have the capability of actually attacking the society, because notice that they're still going to be unpredictable the moment that people are not going to believe them. So let's take a look at the comparative. What's the comparative and under our side of the house? We think that we need to actually be more realistic. We think it's way more justifiable if we actually end their suffering. No matter which way team opposition goes, it always falls under the harm for the terrorists and also the people. So we say that under our side of the house, we actually create a better alternatives, and our side of the house actually provide a better economic allocation. So proud to be here.
Thank you for the speech, TPM. Now to continue the case coming from the oppositions, let's recall upon the LO. Here.
Oh, so, am I clear?
Yeah, clear.
Okay, in 3, 2, 1. So firstly, what I want to state is those terrorist groups. I think almost every single one of them, one of their main goals is to, firstly, obviously, is to terrorize people, and secondly, is to gain attention. So they want their names everywhere. You open the news, they want you to see their name, the first thing you see on the news. So imagine every time someone does something suspicious, might be related or not might be related to the terrorist group. You open the news, you see X terrorist organization, blah 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 on the news got killed, blah blah blah. It's actually benefiting them. They want people to know that they want to spread their name, their group, and actually being killed is technically them, for them, is achieving their mission. Like, oh, I have achieved my mission. So if you, for example, you execute a terrorist, it might the they might think they're actually right, and then they might think they're actually right, and then they think, oh, the government, they are trying to suppress us, and then they'll try even harder. Maybe if you execute them, their fallen comrades will, if you execute them, their comrades will avenge their fallen. They will maybe work even harder, do more terrorism. And if you kill on site, for example, someone does something suspicious. Firstly, they might just seem suspicious, even though they might be doing something completely legal. They might not be harming anyone. They might be doing something weird. They might be just acting weird for the sake of it. They might not be normal. And then if you kill them, you mistaken them for terrorists, and that's going to cause lots of fear. It's going to cause lots of fear, because it could happen to you. So you would always be constantly looking behind your back, like, am I acting suspicious? Am I acting normal? And then eventually one day, because it is human error will always happen. Innocent man killed, blah blah blah, because they thought he was a terrorist or something. And it will bring fear to the community. People will go out less, and by them trying not to act suspicious, they might actually be acting suspicious. And then what if the person is being blackmailed? What if the terrorist organization is holding them hostage? Okay, sure. Killing them is cheaper in the long run. Executing them on the site is cheaper than putting them life in prison. But you can't really put a price on human life, even though they have taken human life away. But still, you as the government, you are the one fighting the terrorists, you want to seem as the good guy. You want the public to be the good guy, and the terrorist organization being the bad guy. So good versus evil. You want to be the good. So if you, for example, kill on site, people will start to gain empathy for the terrorists, even though they have done horrible things, and you don't want that. So you want to dissociate yourselves from them. If you just kill them on site, what's the difference between you and the terrorists, for example? So if you, and generally whenever someone is killed and it's brought up on the media, it's generally something bad. Normally people frown at the sight, the news, when someone dies. So, and this will happen to even terrorists. Some people do frown when terrorists die and get killed. So if you want, so you will see more civilized than the terrorists if you, for example, you manage to arrest them. Sure, they might not go free, maybe not even ever go free. They will probably get life in prison. But think about this: if they get life in prison, you will be opening more job opportunities. So it could be better in the long run. You could bring them to rehabilitation facilities. Sure, it might not work. It might work, but at least you're creating jobs. You're benefiting the people, even though it might be a scary job. That is all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech, DLO. Now, to close the substantive part of the government side of the house, let's recall upon government whip. Here.
Is my voice audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Life sentence is a much more human way to do, but side opposition decide to cage them up for a life sentence punishment, right? They decide to punish by making this terrorist person in a cage, like literally for a whole entire of their life. We don't get why are they championing life so much and human rights, but they decide to, for example, make this terrorist person suffer more in the cage, right? So we really do not understand their whole entire case, right? When they told you that, oh, it's not human to, for example, kill them, but decide to, for example, give them a life sentence punishment. We don't get why is it so human under this side of the house still, right? But in line of that, two clashes, right? Firstly, on why is it justified to support this extrajudicial killing by the state, and second clash on which side create better safety. First clash though on why is it justified to support this extrajudicial killing. We have proven to you two things, right? Firstly, killing terrorists is justified because they cannot be reformed anyway. Unlike prisoners that do crimes such as stealing, they are able to be reformed by going to rehabilitation. That's why they are in prison, because they will be functional at the end of the day towards society. For example, they can become a labor after rehabilitation, or for example, work for the government when they go out of prison and after rehabilitation. That's why government give these subsidies towards this prison so that they can be functional at the end of the day and be reformed. Secondly, it is also justified even though there's no judge, because of how it's really time sensitive that these terrorists, for example, have a lot of backup plans. It's really uncertain. If you wait by bringing them to the court, we really cannot just like assume that, oh, it's still going to be safe, because like they're unpredictable in the first place, right? They have like a lot of backup plans. We must do it quickly, right? It's so time sensitive. But what do we get in response? Firstly, when they told you that, oh, killing is against religious belief, three responses. Firstly, panel, we really heard minimum explanation on the first speaker. Firstly, why religious belief is so important that it should be catered. Secondly, why under side opposition their alternative is aligned with religious belief, and it's really significant, right? Knowing that they're like making the prisoners suffer more, right, in like the life sentence. Thirdly, why religious belief has interest to interfere with the law and policy making that we're doing. We got no response at all to this. Do not credit this at all. It's already totally to be defended. Second response though, even if we have to buy this argument, yes, panel, it is against any human right, religious belief. But panel, we don't get why is the correlation of religious belief under this motion, right? Knowing that religious belief also do not support terrorists in the first place or any like killing, right? Knowing that even society, who is the hugest spectrum, are already harmed because of terrorist action, or how a children is already being kidnapped and killed because of these terrorists. And we don't understand why on their side opposition they want to, for example, cater to the religious belief who do not want killing. But like, for example, these terrorists are already killing in the first place. Like these terrorists are already spreading fear. They're already creating trauma. They're already creating like a huge loss towards people and society. We don't get why isn't it justified to kill, right? Third response though, panel, we don't get why it's so unjustified. Like literally in status quo, death penalty already exists, right? What makes it justified is when we know that this person or terrorists have the intention in the first place. Why is intention enough? These terrorists or suspicious person do not follow the regulation, right? How so? We already clearly told you on how this form of policy is going to be known, right, by society, that if you don't follow the regulation and act suspiciously, you can be killed. Exactly because of this, we think society and these terrorists know, right, that if they continue to act suspicious and insist to not be checked by the police, they can get killed. So if they really insist and don't want to be checked by the police and keep on fighting and insisting to go in without their bags being checked, it shows how this person is actually bringing something that is dangerous, that even the police that is trusted by the government to provide protection aren't allowed to check, like, ladies and gentlemen. Exactly because of this intention is already enough, right, on how the protector of the state, like, literally aren't allowed
to check the back, we think it shows how the back is like not correlated with something good, right? When the police even are not allowed to check it, we think that's why it's already enough in the first place. We think it's so justified. Side opposition cannot defend on why it's unjustified because of its killing, right? We champion in this clash. But second though, on when they told you that terrorists are forced to do this, two responses. Firstly, panel, we don't get why they are when they are forced to do this. We still have, for example, have to cater to them. Like, what is side opposition going to do if these terrorists are forced to do so? Are they going to let them go? Because realize we don't get why side opposition is feeling so sorry towards these terrorists, but still decides to punish life sentence, right? We need clear explanation on why, when we know these terrorists are forced, they should be life sentences. We think side opposition needs to, for example, regard this scenario, right? When they say us, terrorists are forced to do this, then why are you still punishing them? Are you like feeling sorry for them? Second response though, panel, if terrorists are forced to do it, it doesn't substitute our reasoning on why we shouldn't give extrajudicial killing. Why? Literally, panel, exactly on how they are forced to do so, as what side opposition claims also, it shows how they will do anything to, for example, to actually do their task, right? For example, no matter how, if you negotiate with them, they are already threatened, right, panels? As what they say, it shows that threat that is given towards these terrorists are so big that these terrorists has to do this terrorism act, right? When terrorists are forced, it shows how they're also threatened, right? That they must do it, right? Or else they can get punished, right? Exactly when they're doing terrorism act, which is like, for example, killing, and they're already threatened, it shows how the threat is so big that these terrorists will do anything to, for example, not be threatened and get punished, right? So it shows how even though they're already forced to do it, literally they will still want to do it, right? Because they simply do not want to be punished by their masters, for example. Third thing, when they told you that it's still within the interest of terrorists because they want attention. One response to this is completely inexclusive. News about terrorists will still exist under both sides, because under opposition, even though they got arrested, it's going to go on the news and other terrorists are probably going to avenge them. But it's going to be worse under opposition because it still brings fear to society, because society know these terrorists are still alive and are still in jail. Comparatively, we put society at ease because society know at least the terrorists cannot bring harm anymore, that we straight away kill them, right? Like literally the terrorists under side opposition can, for example, help their friends back, right? Like, for example, the terrorists can go back and help their friends in jail, right? It's so easily for these terrorists to come back, right? But compared to the underside of the house, we already killed these terrorists. Like, these terrorists won't go back because like there's no one to be safe, right? Their friends is already like dead, right? So we win in the first clash. Second clash, which side create better safety? We have already told you that we prevent lives from being killed. These terrorists are so unpredictable. That is to say that they have their own plan that we don't know. Are they bringing a bomb, or do they have a gun to shoot a lot of people? Are they bringing 550 terrorists to a church? When we have the option to eliminate the risk, we do it, guarantee the safety that is being feared by society. But look, we think exactly on how side opposition really do not acknowledge this this benefit that we get. We think they also concede to this benefit. But what do we get, Rinson? They told you that, we're going to kill innocent people. Human error exists. Two responses. Firstly, panel, we don't get why this is so exclusive towards our side. Like, human error exists under their side of the house when they fail to give preventive measures. Like, a huge part of society get killed because of the bomb, because of human error. Second response, untrue. I think police and the people are responsible of the killing will know the consequence of shooting innocent people, because they know that they can get prosecuted as well by the judicial system if they just kill randomly without reasoning behind the decision. So we think they will make sure that they fulfill the procedure on, for example, when they're eligible to shoot the suspicious person. Why is this likely? We think exactly on how government is upholding the protection so much that we literally eliminate any risk harmful outcome. We think the police that we're using will be police that is trusted by government. This police will have good records. Since we're upholding protection so much, we deserve to go to the grand final. So proud to win this debate.
Thank you for the speech. Now, to close the substantive part coming from the opposition, let's call upon opposition whip. Here.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, audible, loud and clear.
All right. Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. All right. I will start my speech by giving out a plenty of rebuttals towards the government team. The first one is from the first speaker. Your first speaker has actually said that terrorists are unpredictable. Then, if they already like trigger, and they said that if they already trigger certain acts, then it would be much harder to avoid the effects. Now, would you really like from my second speaker's point, like, would you really like an analogy put snipers in areas, because it will be like it will be it will result to a fear in the public, because uh based on your solution, from what I've heard, is that you guys actually offer a direct execution from your first speaker has spoken, and actually from that you can like avoid those bigger effects after that. But it seems like the government team has actually analyzed these effects only like on the surfaces. They don't even think about how it would happen in the long term, and also how it would affect in a long term way. And of course, by doing that direct execution, it will bring fear to the public, like what my second speaker have spoken before, and also it will bring more public chaos. Other than that, terrorists. Uh, the first speaker also said about how innocent ones can be like misconcepted, and also be suspicious enough to like for the for the police to actually direct execute them. But people wouldn't act, and he also said that people wouldn't act that suspicious. Now, this is an assumption, ladies and gentlemen, and you can simply assume that one person is not that stupid enough to actually do suspicious things. For example, and also suspicious assumption is the worst possible solution to judicial decisions. I'll give you an example. For example, imagine an execution, which is technically the same as direct execution, assumes that one innocent is guilty. It is the complete opposite meaning, and also the complete opposite of the purpose of the judicial decisions itself. And also, they don't seem to brought any larger scale impact, because their thought is only on the larger scale, on the impacts after the terrorist act. But we, as the opposition side, think of the society's psychology, and also think about their fears, and also their worries about the thing. And it is not gonna be easy for it to apply to the society, especially in the current case. And also, I would like to develop a few points from my second speaker. Now, terrorists actually work as a group, and in fact, as a big group, and it is impossible for them to work independently. Therefore, the execution might result to a revenge. Now, once again, the long-term effect that we propose is that it will develop revenge points within a terrorism group, which then will create a more motivation towards them, which might like result to a bigger terrorism acts. And also, I would like to develop the rehabilitation point, that the person might if we give rehabilitation to them, the person or the terrorist might actually turn around and might have chances. Well, we agree that, as my second speaker say, it might work or fail, but at least we are giving them a chance then that we're willing to take, like to risk it. And also, other than that, our benefit is that it is more effective to be doing that, because it can open us to certain information about the terrorism group and stop it by the terrorism chain, and therefore create a better solution, and also long-term solution. And also, lastly, I would like to um, rebut the third speaker about how it is more human to about their opinion on our opinion, about how it is more human by because we're answering this is because by giving them a second chance, it will be more human. And also, the government side doesn't clearly state by why terrorists can't be given the same chance as the thieves, which is their example, as they've spoken before, because they're both basically humans. And why they didn't clearly state about, no thank you, about why they're different, and they need to be treated differently. And that's the lacking point, and that's crucial within this discussion. And also, I would like to make clear about the status quo, about people getting executed in China. Well, it happens nowadays, but it goes under the certain circumstances and the certain investigation of the police team and the government team, and it's the most ideal way to do it. And also, we're still punishing them. uh I'm answering the third speaker of government's question. we're still punishing these terrorists because they did something wrong out of constitution. Well, yeah, you might think that executing them is also punishing, but we're still giving a chance that is actually the rights of them to have the chance, because they're also human, and also uh, the human rights are actually applied to them. And also, the third speaker of governments has said about how terrorists cannot do bad things anymore if they were executed at that right place. Well, once again, terrorists work as a group. You need to understand that point. Therefore, if they work as a group, then um, it doesn't mean that executing a certain small group or a certain three people of terrorists can actually stop the long-term effects of the terrorist chain. So therefore, I would like to conclude that um, our worst case even still proposes a beneficial solution for the community, which is to well, it might seem that after one is imprisoned, it will be ineffective to stop and replenish the movement of terrorists. But it's once again, since we know that the extrajudicial killing might seem to be a bad thing towards a human, then we can say that doing the rehabilitation by giving them a second chance is the most ideal solution that could possibly get. Because once again, the first reason, it already happened in the current state, and also by giving them a second chance because they're human. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the speech. Now, to give the closing remarks coming from the oppositions, that we call upon the opposition reply here.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Okay, hello? Is the timer running? Okay. So the proposed plan by the government, sure, it might work in the short term, but in the long term, it will not work. Essentially, what you're proposing is martial law. Martial law is basically when the military takes over normal life, essentially, basically. And people, just even if you do martial law for now for a period of time, short time, people will still complain. People will demonstrate. People protest against the government. And if you plan to do this for
and and the fact that in their side of the house that they will work and get reward and eventually be freed, we think that there are some scenarios where people will only in it for the money, and we think that there is no reflection in this within the rehabilitation program, right? But in our side of the house, we will give a punishment, for example, like other, not just monetary things. But if you don't do, or if you don't reflect, you will be longer in this isolation or rehabilitation program. And also, I'm going to rebut about what they said. What do they say? They want to make a world where terrorists will be treated like normal criminals, right? And also, um, if we are living in a place where terrorists are being convicted as the same like people who are doing not so gruesome crimes, we think that this will not give any good good examples on how government will deal with this kind of important crucial things. And also, they said about radical teachings, right? These people are the victims of radical teachings. Three response: the moment that people in radical teaching realize that they will get a decent financial support rather than heavy punishment or longer sentences, this will make people more not aware of what the punishment is. But in our side of the house, we want these kind of isolation and these kind of things. And we think that in our side of the house, we can make people more fear to get into up to these terrorist things. And also, um, even if it's true that they are the victims of doctrinal teachings, is it better that these financial support will be given to other kind of instances, for example, the investigation of these radical teachings, and how we will finally get to the core of what we are dealing right now, for example, the terrorists, right? And also, since the terrorists are just aiming for the money, it's likely for the terrorists will just do these work things and to get the money. And meanwhile, in our side of the house, you will not only get your freedom by reflecting and also work as you do. We think in our side of the house, the fear of going back to isolation camps and also rehabilitation program is enough to make these terrorists won't do the same after, right? And what is our practical? I have 2 points here. It's about how the society and the victims will react to this. They have been dismissive to this on how the people outside will react to this, because realize that these people are also the victim of terrorism. And yes, terrorism are also crucial actors in this debate, but notice how the moment that they are convicted as criminals, we think that they are aware of the punishment. And if they are aware with the punishment that is bad, we think that this will be more effective. And the victims and also the society will respond to this, not only give a decent response to say that government dealing this with the best kind of way, for example, dealing with a heavy punishment, rather than just treating these kind of terrorists like going to a job, right? And also, the secondly, in our side of the house, these kind of financial support can be given to more important instances that is working to stop these kind of terrorism, rather than just giving it all to the rehabilitation program, right? And we think in comparison, in our side of the house, the rehabilitation program will be something that is not being treated as something just light, but we think that by applying our proposal, we think that terrorists will rehab at the end of the day. Thank you. Proud to oppose.
The third speaker of the opposition has spoken for 7 minutes and 25 seconds. To close the opposition's case, please welcome the reply speaker of the opposition.
Please wait a sec. I'm arranging my paper. Am I audible? Loud and clear?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panels, as this debate is coming to an end, I'm going to review this debate. Here, we talk about how not giving financial support to the terrorists and their rehabilitation program is justified. And I'm going to bring several points here in my reply. First of all, they told you that the financial support is going to be given as a type of present for cooperating and doing works, as they have mentioned before. One response to this is clearly unjustified. The moment we are treating these terrorists like this, they realize how they are going to be careless. They will think that their need to be on jail is to do the jobs that we give to them, when what they need to actually do is isolate themselves and clear the radical teachings that they consume. But the moment they got these financial support, being in jail or rehab program becomes something is actually helpful and will make them feel actually comfortable in the prison, which is really harmful to the victims. How? These victims will likely think it is unjustified, right? Because they see on how these terrorists are being treated the way when they're actually being harmed at the very first place, because they are the victim in the very first place. This would be very harmful to the victims and the witnesses as well, and this is very unjustified for the victims. Second, they also told you that these terrorists wouldn't be able to reflect on themselves since they are under a not supportive environment in our side of the house. One response: The other side of the house brought us this to the table, but they don't exactly say on how the environment in their side of the house is going to be supportive, right? Since all of these terrorists are aiming for the financial support. These terrorists are all going for the money that they are going to get. What's more, how we can see on how this even can't be supportive is how there is going to be a competition between one person to another in that program, in that rehabilitation. Notice how the amount of money and reward will not be stable every single month, right? Since it is being provided by the government, it is unlikely to be stable. Therefore, there is eventually going to be a certain competitions between each one of them to aim for the certain amount of money that they're going to get. And third, they're saying that in their side, by the time these terrorists are released from jail and rehab program, in our side, they won't be able to know how exactly it is to work and to get money, which leads to many crimes. We say that this is inexclusive. The moment that in the other side they work in jail doesn't mean that it is impossible for them to commit crimes once they are released from the jail. And the same does to how by not giving them work while they are in the rehabilitation program doesn't mean that these terrorists won't be able to work or know how to at least find money, right? They've gone through years of rehab program, and what they do there is to make their mind in a certain way healthier, right? It is also possible that this rehab program that they are going to be consuming for the are the informations of the job that they can do at the end of the rehabilitation period. And even if they don't know how to find jobs at the end of the day, we say that this is inexclusive once again. In the other side, they can't say that by giving them work during rehab program means that they're going to work for a job when they're freed. Why? Exactly because what they're doing in rehab program, the moment they're working for the certain goal, which is the money, the financial support that they will get, they're only aiming for that. Money becomes their motivation and not reflecting and actually having a better mindset, right? Therefore, it is inexclusive if they say that in the other side, these terrorists won't commit crimes once we give them financial support during rehabilitation program. Last, they say that we're setting they are setting the reward which is being rewarded by the other side. What will happen to them is that it would be better, they would think that it is better to stay in jail, like because they are getting money there, but it is still there are still people who are actually unemployed outside of the jail. Therefore, they will think that by being in the jail, by doing this rehabilitation program, I can actually get money, and this will lead to many crimes such as terrorism. And therefore, due to our arguments, the opposition team stands for opposition.
The reply speaker of the opposition has spoken for 4 minutes and 20 seconds. To close the government's case, please welcome the reply speaker of the government.
Am I audible? Okay, I'll assume I'm audible. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Panels, we question why opposition side of the house want to actually favor the society, which is inherently inaccessible, since the interest of society is actually very wide, and you can favor every single one a layer of the society, right? We question like, why is it even more important than focusing on how we can actually provide a better form of rehabilitation for this convicted terrorist, right? Now, moving on to my classes, I have 2 classes here. First, about which side is more justified, and second, about which side of the house could create better rehabilitation program. Now, moving on to the first class, about which side is more justified. We propose that it is justified for us to give them that financial support because it is not the fault of their own, and it is a form of present, and because they already complied to us, right? We say that this is actually justified to give them like such a present because it is in some cases this kind of terrorist is not actually the one who is in fault of their own. They're only like a victim of indoctrination. There is an absence of malicious intent, right? Well, for example, when they want to bomb, it is not their own malicious intent. They can't make a constant or rational decision because of the indoctrination, fear of the consequence that they might receive if they don't comply, and many more. So we believe that it is actually justified to give them support because the fact that they go to rehabilitation means that they're still not as harmful. Because realize that like leader of terrorist organization would be likely need to prosecute it heavier rather than these terrorists undergo their rehabilitation, right? The parallel example is that the victim of drugs are going to be rehabilitated. Meanwhile, the leader and the one who shares the drugs are the one who is prosecuted, because this leader is the one who has the intention and actually make the victim suffers, right? The justification is solely based by demonization that terrorist is bad and they need to be punished because they have hurt the victims. Meanwhile, they have failed to realize that even though indeed terrorist is bad, most of them are not the one who conduct the plan to bomb this church or bomb this place, hurt these people, and etc. So also, if they are worried about we're not giving them punishment, we believe that under our side of the house, punishment also exists, right? Punishment is not exclusive only under their side of the house. We also give them a punishment. These kind of terrorists aren't suddenly released to the society. Oh, hey, you're free. We need to actually rewire their brain first. We need to help them rewire their moral compass. Then we believe that the moment we are put them in rehabilitation, they're not able to do or go anywhere or do anything they like, right? So we believe that the moment they're put in rehabilitation, we actually limit their life, and the moment they're limited in their life, we believe that it is already a form of punishment. So we believe that under our side of the house, it is still more justified comparatively to under their side of the house. But moving on to my second clash about which side of the house would create better rehabilitation program. Now let's compare both side mechanism. Opposition side of the house wanted the terrorists to be isolated in jail so they could reflect on themselves. But under our side of the house, we want these convicted terrorists to go under rehabilitation. We train them to be able to prepare for their life after they're released later. Panels, notice how on the opposition side of the house has never given step-by-step analysis on how isolation and self-reflection will actually work. Because realize that they're terrorists, they have been indoctrinated, and their rationality and moral compass are most likely have been flipped, right? They no longer have the moral compass of normal human beings. Hence, how are they actually going to be able to reflect on their fault and feeling that, oh, I've been guilty? So I believe that if we go by the opposition side of the house, it is really counterproductive to actually rewire the terrorist mind and help them to go back to the moral compass of a normal human. We believe that our benefit of preventing them from relapsing again is exclusive under our side of the house. Why is that so? We have characterized to you that terrorists who go under rehabilitation are actually those who came from weak economic background. Hence, they opt to join a terrorist organization because this organization promised that they will pay them and promise them a good life. Therefore, when we actually give them financial support, we eliminate one reason why the terrorists want to join the organization against, right? We even help them to have more chance to get a job because we have them train them to. So we believe that under our side of the house, we could create a better rehabilitation program. Proud to propose. Thank you. Oh my God.
The reply speaker of the government has spoken for 4 minutes and 31 seconds. This marks the end of this round of PRODIGY 2021. Please stay in this breakout room while you are waiting for the adjudication. We wish you good luck of the rest of the competition.
Hi everyone. For this semifinal round, it is a silent rounds, and the result will be announced in the debaters hall. So the committee will help you to assign you back, and we will have the announcement there. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Hey everyone, let me do the roll call. Can I have Regina Pachis A and B?
We're here.
Here.
Okay, A and B complete. Regina Pachis C? Hello? Hi. Okay, cool. So Regina Pachis C complete. Can you choose A? Hello, can you choose A?
We're complete.
Are you with us? Okay.
We're complete. Yeah.
All right, good. Now, for the announcement of the semifinal round, I would like to call the respective judges of the room to do the announcements. But beforehand, I think I should congratulate to you all because the semifinal round appears to be a very good debate, as I can tell from the speaker's score. So please applause for each of us because that's an amazing round of debate competitions we have. Now, for the room the room one, I would like to call Matthew. Please have the winners announced. Thank you.
Hi. So in my room, it was a battle between Regina Pachis A and Canisius A, talking about extrajudicial killing in the conflict of terrorisms. For example, terrorisms. I think it was quite a good debate. There is interesting point coming from the both teams, but yeah, it is a competitions. The one that will go into the grand final. Congratulations, Regina Pachis A and commensuration Canisius A. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Matthew. Congratulations for the team and best of luck for the next rounds. We would like to show screen the speaker score. As a mean for transparency, we do it as an open ballot. Jamila will show the screen for the debate in the room one. Hi, do you guys can see the screen being shown?
No.
No. Okay, wait. There is a technical glitch. Hold on. Okay, everyone, we are having technical issues that we are trying to fix on. I think it's better for us to do the next announcements. I would like to call the judges from room 2. Elgard, the floor is yours.
All right. In room 2, it was a debate between Regina Pachis B as government and Regina Pachis C as opposition, with the first motion about financial support for terrorism. Okay, so for me personally, it was a really good debate. It was an above average debate. Ultimately, all three of us came to a unanimous decision. Congratulations to government team Regina Pachis B for proceeding to grand finals. Commiserations, opposition team Regina Pachis C. Yay.
All right, congratulations for all the teams. Hope you can learn valuable lessons from the debate and from the judges. So we are trying to show you the speaker score as the open ballots. So please hold on a second. Berarti okay, guys. So this is the open ballot for vote. All right, we're excited for the grand final round. Congratulations for all the teams. So what do you think the motion is going to be? Do you have any idea? Do you have any suggestions for the motions being debated on what?
Politics.
All right, someone is so much in love with politics here. Is there any other topic that you would like to debate? Okay, someone is suggesting. Okay.
Filosofi. Ayo filosofi.
IR.
Ini kayaknya habis ikutan trap ya, ngerti prinsipalnya semua nih. So you would like to apply it in debate? I'm promoting traps. I think today is the day for the trap seminar. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Okay, here is the topic for the grand final round. But beforehand, this is the matchup. Regina Pacis A will be acting as the government and the Regina Pacis B will be acting as the oppositions. And we would like to announce you the topic of the grand final round of Prodigy 2021. Can I have the applause, please? Excitement, please. All right, thank you. Now, here is the motion under the heading of, what is this? Feminism, Miss Universe, beauty pageant, or else? Does anyone have any idea what this motion is about? Yes. It is. Pardon?
Feminist.
Let's just take a look of what it is. So this is about COVID-19. So we emphasize on the mask, not on the women. Now, On the heading of the COVID-19, the current pandemic that we are all experiencing, motion number 1, in terms of pandemic, this House would aggressively levy taxes against the rich. Motion number 2, this House regret the glorifications of staying productive lifestyle while working from home amidst the pandemic. Motion number 3, this House support the government decision to open educational institutions such as school, varsity, etc. in this upcoming July. Is there any wording that you would like to clarify before we proceed to the cast building time? Let me know. Okay, what does it mean by levy? It's actually levy, right? I think the pronunciation is levy. Levy means you impose a tax. So you are taxing the rich even more. Does that answer? Does it answer? Let me know if it is not clear yet. So I'm thinking another way to explain it to you.
It's clear, Kak.
All right. Is there any other concern then?
No.
Otherwise, I would like to proceed to the cast building time. The committee, please help us to assign the LO as well as the participant and adjudicators in the chambers. Best of luck, everyone. Hello, Celine. Do you have any concern? What do you mean by observing the grand final round?
Can we join the meet to see the grand final round, Kak?
Oh, yeah. You want to watch the debate, right? Is it? Yeah, okay. The committee will help to assign you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Kak.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Hello for the committee.
Yes, Kak.
Can you allocate the grand final judges for the motion preference in the room? Thank you.
Okay.
Belum. Oke, udah.
All right, everyone, time's up. Can I have the debaters to come back so we can commence the debate, please? Hello, Regina Pacis A and B. Okay.
We're here, Regis B here.
Okay, okay.
Here.
Okay, all right, all right. Hello, please help to guide the debate, please. Hello, would you mind?
Oke, siapa? Untuk moderator mau dari kita.
Yeah, please.
Oke. Bentar. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the grand final round of PRODIGY 2021. I am Rian Watfros, who will act as the moderator in this debate. And my friend Nugi will act as the timekeeper. The motion for this round is oh wait, sorry. The motion for this round is COVID-19. Okay, let's start. From the government side, please welcome the first speaker of the first speaker of the government. You may talk now.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right.
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm gonna begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. The crisis that caused hundreds of millions of people from the lower socioeconomic class to die on the streets, while the 1% of the population is still able to go and visit Cancun, or the crisis that caused the vast majority of population starving on the street and the state can't do anything else but to watch them suffer. We think that that in itself is already an urgent crisis that we need to do, and we need to do these desperate measures in order for the safety of the majority of people, which are the people from the lower socioeconomic class. We think in the times of pandemic, as a state, we would want to levy the rich in times of the pandemic. What's our goal as government, right? We want to allocate all the money we want to allocate the money of these kinds of taxes into the poor people who are inside the pandemic and who are suffering, right? 2 points of model under the government. Firstly, on what will this aggressively taxing actually look like, right? 3 sub points. Firstly, we want to create a much more significant taxation towards rich people, meaning it's going to be much higher than just normal taxing. Secondly, allocation, it will be allocated towards the poor people through additional subsidies, for example, just enough for them to put food on the table. Thirdly, we're obviously going to stop these kinds of acts after the pandemic is over, but right now we need to do this desperate measure. We need to do this desperate measure. But second point, what we're still going to do measures that exist in South School, for example, where like IMF and international aids exist, but not enough. We think that those kinds of alternatives will still exist on our side, but it's going to be much better under our side due to our additional policy, which is the allocation, which is the taxing, right? So 2 points of argumentation I'm going to bring. Firstly, on why it's justifiable to tax the rich, and secondly, on why this benefits the majority of the population. Firstly, on why it's justifiable to tax the rich. 3 points, 3 layers of analysis. Firstly, on why are the rich, are the exclusive actors that we need to tax. Let's characterize the rich for a second, right? Because they are the ones who are not being affected at all by the pandemic, right? Why is that so? Because they are not bound to these conventional industries like basic groceries or clothing, for example. They don't have their basic primary needs, like, you know, the bare minimum of actually feeding themselves and feeding their family. And moreover, they're still able to do investments, for example, investment savings. They have a lot, and privatized companies also have a lot of still have a lot of bargaining power, even though we're in times of pandemic, right? Why is that so? Because they're not going to be bound by the majority of people who are at status quo, where they're still bound with crisis, for example, where they're still get laid off from their jobs and etc. Right? Well, so comparatively, the poor people can't have this kind of privileges, and because they come from the lower socioeconomic class, right? So we think that it's already enough to prove why they're excessive factors. But two additional reasons. Firstly, we know that these people are already taxed. Two reasons on why why it's totally okay to tax the rich. Firstly, we know that these people are already taxed to begin with, right? Even before the pandemic, it wasn't anything to them, right? You don't see why it's such a big deal to add some more taxations if they don't mind. They don't really care about what the taxes that they actually pay. For example, they don't care about how much is it. As long as they pay their taxes, it's totally okay. We don't really see signs of conflict, even though that these rich people are still going to get harmed. Why is that so? Because they're still going to have a lot of money at the end of the day through all their banks and savings, right? But second reason, even if they will lose like a significant amount of money for some reason, it's still going to be totally under our side of the house. Why is that so? Because at the very least, they can still put food on the table, right? We're not going to like make them, abolish their class into becoming the lowest of the low, but they're still going to have enough sustenance for them to actually live, right? We think that it's already that they already have that much of a big money to actually sustain the people who are currently in the pandemic, right? The poor people in the pandemic right now, because of how we characterize rich as people who are inherently have a much significant amounts of money rather than poor people. But second layer analysis on let's just engage on our worst case scenario and say that we're basically villainizing the rich. We think it's totally justified, right? So we think that government opposition is concerned about two things. Firstly, about how demonstrations are going to happen, and then secondly, about how not all the rich people are inherently evil, right? I'm going to explain why this will be okay under those two parameters. Firstly, of how demonstrations are going to happen. Within as demonstrations are currently happening in status quo, exactly by the poor people who are getting laid off by the rich, right? It's the moment that these rich people are still profit-oriented at the end of the day and doesn't really care about the lives that they're literally firing and still implementing this capitalistic capitalistic policies at the end of the day, is enough reason to say that these people are actually these rich people actually are harming the poor with all their policies, right? This is evident in like companies, for example, or privatized industries. We know that those kinds of rich people deserve to be taxed. But secondly, let's just say that not all rich people are inherently evil. We still think it's justified. Why is that so? Because the moment that we're in a pandemic and there are hundreds of millions of people that are dying, but the rich who had the power to do that decided to not do anything and decided to like still be egoistic and just continue doing all these luxurious things. We think that that's enough reason to actually frame someone as people who are bad, right? Because there are still literally people dying around you and they're not doing anything. We think that that's enough reason to actually tax the rich at the end of the day. But third layer analysis on why the state doesn't have any alternative. Let's characterize the pandemic for a second. We think the state is the one who also gets the most impact, right? Why is that so? Two reasons. Firstly, the country can't do investments at all other countries because of how risky it is, right? There's no guarantee of return in times of pandemic because other countries are bound to, for example, economic crisis, for example, or like meltdowns. Those kinds of risks are at the large in this case of pandemic, right? Because of how economic trade is going to be very much limited. Second reason, we think that trade between countries is also going to be strictly prohibited due to health standards, right? It's going to be hard to force these countries to actually sustain themselves, even if these kinds of countries can even trade at the end of the day. But let's just engage in our worst case scenario. Even if let's just engage in their best case scenario and say that this is the state's entire fault for letting the pandemic actually kill all these poor people. We still say it's still justified to harm the rich under two reasons. Firstly, the state already tried so many alternatives that they could to actually allocating to actually saving the poor, right? This looks like subsidies and etc. Those kinds of things are just not enough to actually cater them. But secondly, we know that no country in the world knows about the volatility of this pandemic in the first place. It becomes very unpredictable to actually scale the actual harms of the pandemic. So we think it's still justified to actually to tax the rich. But Firstly, what's the comparative figure on our side? Poor people are still going to be safe because of the how we actually trying to allocate all this money from the tax from the rich people to these poor people, right? They're still able to get food on the table. They're still able to finally sustain themselves and feed their families. At the end of the day, we propose a much more justified action to save the vast majority of the people. We are so proud to propose.
Okay, thank you for the first speaker of the government. Responding to the government case, please welcome the first speaker of the opposition team. The first speaker of the opposition, you may speak now.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Just wait a minute. Starting in 3, 2, 1. During this time of pandemic, this economic crisis that happens alongside with the pandemic, it affects everyone economically, right? It is very immoral to aggressively tax the rich, even at some point because they have a lot of savings in account or just because they live in a comfortable house, right? We say that this crisis actually affects everyone, and everyone is actually struggling to keep a balance of their economy, right? We believe that even those who comes from higher class also suffer to like maintain their business because they get less profit because the society's purchasing power is deteriorates, right? So we will not aggressively tax the rich, but instead we will just let them pay the normal tax, that the normal progressive tax that is usually used in most countries, right? So what is our goal in this debate? In time of pandemic, society has been severely damaged in terms of economy, right? So our goal is that we don't want to impose any more the harm to make the society suffer even more. We don't want to impose harm to both like the like the rich people and to those who are poor, right? So how would our work look like? 2 points of mechanism. First, we will not impose any kind of more tax against the rich, right? The tax that they're going to pay is one that they already have even before the pandemic, the normal progressive tax, right? Even with the normal progressive tax, we see that the rich people already like pay more tax than those who comes from the middle and to lower class, right? But second point of mechanism is that to help the middle and lower class, we're still going to like give financial support, like how it happens in the status quo, like using the government budget to like give them financial support and so on and so forth. So like we believe that like financial support to the middle and lower class would still exist under our salary house. So now moving on to my arguments, I have 2 points of arguments. First, why is it unjustified to aggressively tax the rich? And second, why taxing the rich brings more harm than good? So let's move on to the practical first. Why taxing the rich brings more harm than good? We say that in the current pandemic, we see that that one of the biggest problem happening is actually the economic crisis right now, right? Companies are already losing their profit because society couldn't buy any of their products. Hence, they also, because they reap less profit, they also need to lay off people or to lay off their employees, so that a lot of people are actually unemployed and have no purchasing power. So we see here that there is this cycle which doesn't necessarily only affect the middle to lower class, but also the one who comes from higher class, because they don't get as much as profit as before, right? But then why is it harmful if we actually tax the rich more? Because they already lose their profit. Not every rich people is like this multi-millionaire rich person that is able to like sustain all of their business, right? So the moment we actually impose higher tax on them, they will lose even more of their profit in order to pay the taxes. Thus they have less capital to sustain their industry, and people will have less job fills. Now, why is it likely? Because for them to actually hire people and give them their salary each month, it needs a lot of money, right? But given such amount of tax, like aggressive amount of tax, it will be even harder for them to maintain all of the spending they need to make for their employees. So now, why is it important? 2 points. First, middle to lower class people are likely to be laid off more from their job. Second, it is inherently harder for middle to lower class people to find job fields during the pandemic and soon after the pandemic ends. So now what is the comparative? Under our cyber house, okay, we let rich people still reap their profit, but we say that it is okay as long as we don't harm the middle to lower class people, because the vulnerable actors are middle to lower class people, and they're the one that actually need the rich for job, right? Because they need job to help sustain their life. And the rich, because they have the companies, they could have the industries, they're the one who actually provide job fields for for these middle to lower class people. So if we hurt or we cut down their profit to the point that it is harder for them to be sustain their company, for example, we believe it is also going to hurt our vulnerable actors, which are the middle to lower class people, because now they don't have any option for job fill, right? Okay, opposition might say that people are laid off anyway during the pandemic, but we say that what is important is to actually preserve these companies to still be exist. So at least when the pandemic ends, they still have an option to actually apply, right? These companies would, after the pandemic ends, could still open for more job fill for these middle to lower class people. But comparatively, under the Southern House, this benefit will not happen, and there's a likelihood of people from middle to lower class to suffer even more, even like during and after the pandemic, because they want to like tax more of the rich to the point like maybe it is harder for them to like sustain and the company their company to close down on or etc. So like this lower class people less jobs. Now moving on into principle, we say the percentage of the taxes that are given in the status quo is actually already fair. We say that the pandemic affects everyone greatly, right? No matter whether you came from a lower income or high income group people, COVID still find it to destroy the economic stability of these people. The rich still face common problems like having the risk of being infected, having their jobs halted, having their flow of income slower. The justification of because they are more capable and suffer less than poor in defense to tax them aggressively is purely unjustified because they already have a fair percentage of tax that they have to give. How taxing works is that as you have more assets and more possessions, like the rich, you are obliged to pay more tax, right? Even without the pandemic, you will still have to maintain a stable economy, trying to match your income and the tax you will have to pay for all of your possession. We say that normal taxation towards everyone, rich or poor, is already posing a burden because they are facing the same harm, a halted flow of income and stability. Also, we say that taxing the rich will not give much contribution to the economy, knowing that the rich like actually have gained less profit it too, right? We believe that rather than giving them a burden, it is much more justified to just do normal progressive taxes. So the rich can just like pay the normal amount they need to pay, because we say that progressive tax is already enough, right? Why is it so? Because let's take a look of Indonesia, who actually use progressive tax, right? Indonesia actually has the budget to like create great infrastructure and so on and so forth. We actually already have the budget, yet knowing that the national budget comes from the tax, right? So we say that Indonesia already have the capability to like create great infrastructure and so on and so forth. But the reason why this tax doesn't actually manifest in the welfare of the people is not because we like the tax and the budget and we need to like tax the rich more, but it's actually because the government is inherently bad by corrupting the budget, right? For example, on how bansos for COVID is actually being corrupted by the minister. But on the first place, we actually have the budget to provide help, right? So we don't need to tax more of the rich to just help the poor. So we say that it is unjustified to put burden of aggressive tax for the rich. Back to oppose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the first speaker of the opposition team. Responding to the opposition case, please welcome the second speaker of the government. You may speak now.
Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay, let me set my timer. Okay, I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna divide my speech today into 3 points. First point on why status quo isn't enough. Second point on why our side of the house is still going to be better at the end of the day. And third point on why set opposition doesn't align with the state interest of getting elected in the next election. So let's move on to the first point on why status quo isn't enough. So team government, so team opposition try to frame to you that, oh, government subsidies still exist and it's still not, it's already enough. First response to this is not enough panels. Because that these kinds of subsidy money and, for example, IMF money, it actually isn't infinite in the current status quo. What have the proof of it. Take a look at the current status quo right now. People are still protesting. People are still doing riot, even though there's still subsidies given by the government, even though government is giving them all they have in this current pandemic, but people are still rioting because they don't have enough money. So we don't see why their proof of saying that status quo subsidy is enough is already enough to actually prove their point, right? But even if let's just say that subsidies are already enough under their side of the house, we say that these kinds of subsidies are inexclusive panels. Subsidies will still also exist under our side of the house. The difference is that under our side of the house, these kinds of subsidies are going to be significantly better when we don't actually depend on these kinds of limited things that we can actually give, and we instead use these kinds of funds to actually add more money and more help to the welfare, to the tax that we already collected from the rich. So what's the conclusion in this point? We say that status quo isn't enough, and their side of the house need to prove on why subsidies are actually enough to actually sustain the people when you see people actually rioting everywhere in the current status quo. But now let's move on to the second point on why our side is still going to be better. 3 points that team opposition bring in this point. Firstly, they said that the rich are already taxed so much. Second point, they said that the rich people are also affected by this kind of pandemic. And third point, on poor people can still go back into the job they got fired from after the pandemic after not taxing the rich. So the first point on why they said that the rich are already taxed so much. We don't see the problem in this panel. We said that these kinds of taxes are not just tax we give for nothing, but exactly because their income money is more than the regular people already get, right? So the taxes that they actually receive and they actually need to pay are actually not that significant to them. And anyways, right? These kinds of taxes that they actually receive are already equal to what they're actually getting in the current status quo. We don't see why these kinds of rich people already getting taxed so much are actually important to justify their point. The second thing about they said that rich people is also affected. Panel, we know that COVID-19 is also affecting rich people, but do realize everyone is suffering right now. And we know that the rich are the ones who are likely to not be affected as much when considered the middle class and the lower class people. When considered them, they're the most stable at this point of the pandemic. We already characterized to you that these kinds of people actually have savings, investment, etc., that are more and way more likely to actually help them in these kinds of pandemics. They already have conventional industries, etc., etc. They are more likely to help them when compared to normal people, right? No response to this coming from the leader of opposition. But the third thing that the team opposition said is that, poor people can still go back to the job they got fired from after the pandemic by not taxing the rich. I see this as a really idealistic claim, right? Because it's very arbitrary to actually guarantee that the pandemic will be over before you even get sicker and more people actually die. Opposition failed to actually see the time sensitivity and the urgency of these kinds of pandemic. And we're not talking about the bleak future where people can just suddenly get jobs. We're talking about the tangible harms of the present and on how we actually need to help them right now, right? But now let's move on to the third point on why such opposition doesn't actually align with the state's interest of getting elected in the next election. So the problem that opposition is going to be worried about is that, the rich people will then distrust the state, and it's not just a fight for rich people. Firstly, we question the importance of this point coming from side opposition, because realize that we have told you it's all actually worth the trade-off of not actually fulfilling the interest and the needs of a few rich people getting affected and a few rich people getting mad when compared to an entire riot happening by a middle to low class people all around your country, because they're actually a more amount when you compare them to the rich people. And we say that these kinds of things needs to be questioned on why it's actually more important than catering to a large amount of community. But okay, let's just buy their point and say that rich people are the ones that have the purchasing power and they are the ones that actually have the money. But panel, we see these kinds of purchasing power won't even matter to that much to the state at all at the end of the day, right? Why is this the case? Firstly, do realize that the interest of the state is actually to get votes for the next election. The amount of money that you have as a person, as a rich people, as a poor people, won't change the amounts of votes you get and how big it actually impacts the voting, right? No matter how much richer you are and how much poorer you are, you still get one vote, and this one vote matters. So panel notice that under side opposition, when you actually only cater to the rich by not giving them these amounts of taxes like like under our side of the house, you're basically just shooting yourself in the leg as a state and letting go of a bigger voter base filled with middle to low class people that are more expensive in size, right? You're basically just removing all these kinds of voting and especially voting in the 1% of the rich people in population. What kind of rational state are just going to rely on the 1% of the rich people to actually vote them when you have this 99% group of middle to low class people that you actually can cater to by giving this tax? So why does state actually need to care about their voter base so much? We say that this is important because it's what's going to give them power panels. Rich people's purchasing power won't actually directly affect them when it comes to voting. It's going to be way worse under their side of the house because there are literally thousands of people from the middle to low class citizen actually protesting the government by not giving them enough, and they're just going to protest any in their way possible to actually get the money from the government. This protest is going to proliferate, and instead the vast majority of society will hold a grudge against the state when actually compared to their side of the house where our side of the house, where sure, maybe the rich people will hold a grudge on us, but the amount of people that will hold a grudge in their side of the house is going to be more when compared to us. So let's take a look at the comparative here. Our side actually caters to the most important interest of state, which is to get re-elected panel. While in such opposition, the state will lose a big voter base that they need to actually earn and get their power without actually any tangible benefits from the rich they cater to so much. So what's the conclusion here? Our side actually aligns more with the biggest interest of the state of actually getting vote for a team government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the second speaker of the government. Responding to the government case, please welcome the second speaker of the opposition team. Time and place is yours.
Hi, guys. Clarification. I cannot turn off my filter. I don't know how. Please don't mind me. Oh yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I prefer verbal POI. So if you want a POI, just unmute yourself and say POI. Okay. Starting in 3, 2, 1. I find it quite ridiculous for side proposition to just demonize rich people and saying that they're actually the reason that people from low to middle class are suffering, right? Because I understand in times of crisis, capitalization is the crucial thing for the development of the country. We question then what's there on their side of the house, what the money is going to be allocated anyway, what the government is going to do with the extra money they gain from taxing the wealthy people, right? I think their side of the house need to work more on explaining why the government needs extra money and why the current status quo mechanism isn't enough, ladies and gentlemen. So therefore, I don't think they can win this debate. But let's move on to the two classes. Firstly, on the principal justification, and secondly, about the practical right. One of the first classes about the principal justification, which is a very salient and simple point, right? What do they already told you under this? They say to you that these people are already rich and still can sustain their life. So if we tax them anyway, it is going to be okay. Several responses. Panels A, we think that lack of model, right? Panels, I don't know what their mechanism and metrics of being rich, right? Is it from the money that you have in the bank? Is it from your income? Unclear explanation regarding the metrics of how they're going to measure how rich are people, right? But secondly, either way of the metrics of measuring, we think that who is rich and who is poor is inherently problematic, right? Realize by having more money doesn't necessarily make you more prosperous. Some people really need to support the whole entire family and work 2, 3, 4, 5, even like 10 different jobs at the same time, ladies and gentlemen. But see, we think that even if they're rich, it is okay, right, for these kind of people to be rich. It is a right of personal investment, ladies and gentlemen. Exactly, because we think that government didn't have any hand in making these people rich. We think that it is unjust to just interfere with their wealth and prosperity, right? I think that it is within their hard work and within their effort to be rich anyways, right? But D, we think that it is still okay when rich people do traveling, something like that, right? Because we think by actually they're doing fun things isn't not necessarily harmful, right? I think when people go to Bali, like have fun, it is still going to benefit the locals anyways, right? You're still going to contribute some money to actually increase the purchasing power within the local itself, right? Exactly, because of that reason, we don't think that it is significant, right? But now let's move on to the second layer, to the second thing in my speech, which is the practical right. Firstly, what do I have already told you under this? They told you that wealthy people are exploiting the poor, so they are suffering. So for response, finals, I don't understand this explanation, lack of step-by-step analysis. But even if it's true, 3 reasons criminal justice system exists, minimum wage exists. I don't understand how they even exploit to begin with, right? But we think it is even untrue, right? We don't think right now poor people are suffering because they are being exploited, but rather because now they are being unemployed, ladies and gentlemen. So don't be dismissive and just open your ears, right? Now the reason that the money is not being distributed, the reason that the state budget, that people are suffering is not because the state budget is not enough, but it is because it is not distributed towards the poor, given the fact that the government have already betrayed the trust from the society, and that budget for Bansos COVID are actually being corrupted, like ladies and gentlemen. I think they still have a budget since now the development that are already happening under the current status quo are being done without this extra tax, ladies and gentlemen. So I don't think I don't think it is not enough. I think that it is already enough, given the fact all the development that is already happening under the current status quo is being done without that proposal, right? So let's talk about the second thing, right? Acceptance from the society. What they have already told you under this, because they think that the society want the rich to be taxed more in order for them to be prosperous. Panels, I don't think that society necessarily wants the rich to be taxed more, right? But rather they want the government to allocate the money in a more transparent manner. Exactly, because we don't think that the society inherently hate the rich people and they demonize rich people like they do, ladies and gentlemen. I think that in policy making, acceptance from the society is a very crucial aspect. I think it is even worse, right, under this of the house, because the proposal is unlikely to be accepted since it is going to disadvantage the higher class people, right? The people that can actually capitalize, right? But what it makes this bad is not because of that, it's because on how this will create a potential rejection for the society and chaos and so forth, just like how omnibus law is being rejected by the society. So for that reason, now we move on to the third thing in the practical layer. Realize that their side of the house only pushing the rich, but they cannot really actually realize that the rich are actually the one who provide job, right? Firstly, even companies as big as Nissan, Nissan Motors, right, like cars, now they decided to discontinue their selling in Indonesia because of how COVID has already affected them. Secondly, within that, even like giant supermarket like in Botas, Botani Square, they decided to just close, right? Because they cannot survive during this pandemic, right? So given the fact that these people, that the rich company and rich people are already not have the capability to sustain their life and sustain their business, we think that by taxing them even more will even create them to even bankrupt and more unemployment will exist, right? But how under side opposition, under our side of the house, we can create better economy by capitalization. I think in times of crisis, capitalization of industry is needed the most to make sure that there's people who are being employed and there's adequate amount of job fills, right? This is when people can be creative, finding alternative, and raise the purchasing power of the people that is cost effective and can benefit them in the long run. We think that innovations are exclusive when there's a capitalization from the wealthy, when there's no capitalization from the wealthy people, when there's capitalization from the wealthy people, right? Since they have the capital to open the business and have the capability to employ people. But why this is as of importance? Two substantial reasons. Because realize there's also some sector that cannot survive, like tourism in Bali. We don't have any tourists, right? But secondly, but not only we only increase the purchasing power, this also opens jobs opportunities, right? Compared to the government bench, when they actually want these people to be taxed more. So I think it is unlikely for them to have an adequate amount of capital to sustain or open their business, right? Their side of the house only provide to you a short-term solution by giving quote unquote prosperity towards this low to middle to low class people, right? Under our side of the house, we think that we can provide a long-term solution by providing these people job, by actually not taxing these people, so the rich people, so they will be able to open job fields, right? But how this is actually going to work under opposition bench? Exactly because these people have the capital to open the needed sector, for instance, like hospital, clinics, and selling medications that is most crucial in the current status quo in the pandemic itself, right? Exactly because of that, we think that people will be more likely to have this crucial sector be developed under the current status quo situation, which is needed the most, right? So proud to oppose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the second speaker of the opposition team. Responding to the opposition case, please welcome the third speaker of the government. The third speaker of the government, you may speak now.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Um. I'm going. Oh yeah, for PI, yeah, just through chat. Okay. 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 I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. 4 strategic flaw that made them lose this debate. Firstly, the goal that side opposition want to achieve is that they don't want to impose more harm, but decided to not tell us why the budget of a state is so stable. Like literally, there's no more trade anymore in a crisis. How is the budget of a state is so enough that is so stable, right? Because realize when taxing the rich, it will be continuously, right? That these rich have savings, investment that will still keep on going. So we think this is a much more stable, right? In comparison to like them relying on a budget of a state which is like dropping right now, right? We don't get the stability coming from their side of the house, and I'm sorry, third speaker cannot defend about this. Secondly, second strategic flaw. Why is that important for us to cater to the interests of rich people as a state? We already told you how we give the exclusive benefit, which is to cater to the interests of the state to get more votes, right? And they can fulfill this underside opposition. Thirdly, why the status quo is enough to fulfill the needs of lower class people, when in the current status quo, it's already obvious that people are protesting and rioting because they don't get enough money, right? Fourthly, if we conceded that all their benefit is long term, then it doesn't benefit the most important actor, which is the people dying right now. It's that time sensitive, ladies and gentlemen. Even though our side is short term, then at least we're fixing the problem right now that is going to be, for example, not going to be in the long term anyways, right? It's a pandemic that will be fixed right as quick as possible under our side now, since we're like focusing on the short term, on the people that's actually dying right now, not the long term effect, right? It's something that's not going to benefit the one dying right now, right? We're catering to the ones dying right now. But we think it's already a win for side government. Two clashes though. Firstly, which side create better economy and stability in a crisis? Secondly, why is it justified to impose the tax to the rich? First clash, which side create better economy and stability in a crisis? This is the most championed clash, since this clash is what tell us how a country can survive in this crisis. We prove to you two things. Firstly, we maintain the poor, which is the vulnerable actor, which are the ones who cannot get jobs. We subsidize them. Secondly, demonstration will happen under opposition only, because demonstration status quo is happening because of how government failed to cater to the unemployment of people, simply because lack of capital. Moreover, unemployed people also demonstrate to the company that they used to work in as well, which is also the rich, because they got fired for no reason, for example. Compare that to with our side of the house. We give subsidies using these taxes coming from the rich. No demonstration will happen, even if it doesn't. Even if it does, it's very minor. What do we get in response? Firstly, when they told you that, oh, rich people already lose profit. One response to this panel: look at their wording. All they say is that, oh, they lose profit. Realize, panel, this is a very defensive argument. As to how they're losing profit doesn't mean that we're making rich people suddenly poor, right? Sure, panel, they might decrease in economy, but this applies to everyone, even the vulnerable actor, which is the poor. Even the government is decreasing in capital economy, so we don't get why having a huge profit in times of crisis is something that's really needed, when government and society are already decreasing in economy. Like, so I think the third speaker of opposition needs to explain why the rich that lose profit is something really harmful, because what we're talking about is the lives of people that is like the global poor, that everyday people will die if we do not act quick. So why trading off by catering to the profit is much more important. We demand explanation. But second thing, when they told you that, oh, layoff will be more and people have no job fields, right? They tell us this, right? Three responses. Firstly, insignificant. Panel, we think this doesn't substitute the reasoning of the harm that we have told you, right? Why? Literally, when side opposition say you that rich want to profit, we think they won't recruit a lot of people anyway. So we question the significance coming from side opposition on how they promise you, oh, people will get jobs, but companies still want to profit. Second response, panel, we think the ones that can have a job is the one that, for example, are qualified enough. That whose side opposition is catering to is people that used to have a higher position than just the normal laborers. Exactly because of this, it shows how at the end of the day, under opposition, these people who were just office boys back then will not be catered, because if they want to cater to the office boy, the company cannot have profit as what side opposition want to achieve, right? Because cleaning service isn't really needed anyways, right? Only limited people can come to shop or economy or the company, so they won't be really need they don't need cleaning as much. So office boy won't be catered at all. What's going to be catered is the one that actually has a high position. They cannot cater to the one that is like very vulnerable. Third response, no thank you. Compare that though inside government, we don't see who they we don't see who they are. We cater to the office boy, we cater to the ones with the higher position as well. Then and we cater to everyone, right? We divide the subsidy equally and maintain all the middle class people welfare. We're the one that actually give equality towards the people who actually needs money. Comparatively, under their side house, they're just going to care for profit. They're just going to recruit people with high position. We win, right? We win the first clash on how we're actually giving much more stability in crisis. We divide the distribution of subsidy equally. No, thank you. Second clash, why is it justified? We have proven to you three things, right? Rich people aren't affected by the pandemic. They have high savings, investment, high position in job. Secondly, rich people are the owner of a company who is a part of laying off laborers. They were the ones wanting to profit by decreasing the numbers of labor in their company. So it shows how they were also interfering towards the suffering of poor people. So we say it's okay to tax the rich, right? Because they were the one that was the head of the company. They were the one that lay off people. Thirdly, interest of state is to be elected as well in the next era. That's why the state will want to cater to the majority, which is the middle to low class. We are now with the state, no response at all towards the interest of state. We think we still champion. But let's just take their rebuttal, right? When they firstly told you that we're demonizing rich people, rich people still need to cater to the children. That rich people still want to feed their children. Two responses. Firstly, panel, I think side opposition really need to acknowledge our reasoning, right, as to how rich people were the ones that actually also made the unemployment rise, that they care for profit, so rich people decide to lay them off. Moreover, panel, all they said was, rich people needs to feed their children, but never explained to us why middle to low people do not feed their children and can feed their children, right? We think that these middle to low class people, firstly, they do not have any jobs. Moreover, they cannot feed their children more, right? But look, under their side of the house, rich people can still feed their children using their savings that they have. For example, back then, when they invest, and like, for example, saving up, right? Because they have a lot of income, they use their money wisely by, for example, keeping it in the bank. We think that it's really not urgent to, for example, cater and looking at the rich people feeding their children, right? Look at the people who are actually starving every day, right? We think side opposition cannot really define about this. Second thing, when they told you that, it's government fault because of corruption. Two responses. Firstly, exactly because we know that it's our fault, we are proposing this. This is a government effort to actually help the economy at the end of the day. Because realize we're not just going to let people be stranded after we take high class people's money. We're of course going to allocate them to welfare. We're going to allocate the capital to and give it to the welfare of the poor, right? We're still acting as a national government. Let's just concede it's our fault. Then we're actually proposing this. It shows how side opposition is actually blaming us. Then we provide to you this actually our proposal, right? Second response, we don't get why this is the time to accuse the government, right? I think side opposition needs to tell us why, when it's government fault, like when they want to accuse, it's government fault, corruption, why suddenly bring back the economy, right? We don't get why is it the time to accuse. We think side opposition that just want to accuse government will really not save the economy. Vote for our side of the house if you want to help the economy of the poor people. We're so proud to win this debate, but no matter who win, let's just be the champion.
Okay, thank you for the third speaker of the government. Responding to the government case, please welcome the third speaker of the opposition. Time and place is yours.
For PRI, just unmute yourself. All right, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panels, firstly, we never understand the metrics of rich and poor that they try to actually bring to this debate. Firstly, they said the rich people who are there actually going to tax are the ones who could still bring food and like drinks to the table, right? But this is not like a clear delineation of what the rich is actually trying to scope. I have two clashes that I'm going to bring in my speech. Firstly, why is it actually unjustified to aggressively tax on the rich? And second, how this will actually disbenefit the government and the country in the long run. Firstly, and why is it unjustified? We have told you how they are facing like the same kind of hardship as the poor ones, right? We said that that these percentages already fair from the very first place, saying that they have been like struggling like others to pay for tax, even if without the pandemic. Taxing against them more during the pandemic would actually be like more of a burden for them to carry. But then what do we get in response? They say that the rich is not affected at all. Even if they are, then this is not like something that's really like crucial, right? We said that this is very easy for the government to say, saying that the impact of the COVID is not only about whether or not that they can actually put food to the table for the rich, right? They still have like to match with the expenses that they have to make, like providing education for their children, who, for example, aren't like subsidized by the government at all. Putting food on the table is something that we need to at least like uphold, right? We don't see why, as long as they can put food on the table, they are then immediately forced to pay higher taxes. Saying that putting food on the table is like probably the greatest extent of their economic strength. Then they said this is like no big deal because they've been taxed before already. Firstly, it's very convenient for the government to say this and to say that they aren't burdened by the taxes at all. We said that even during the times of like pandemic, even when they could pay for food and pay for education, they still needed to stretch the amount of income that they had. That's probably like very limited compared to the expenses that they have to make, right? Savings, like as they've said, we still think that savings is not like something that they could easily lean on enough to pay their expenses and moreover to actually pay higher taxes, right? Because even with like the pandemic, not only are they like being risk of limited income, they still have to pay their taxes, they still have to pay like for the education and so on. The fact that they have to actually close down their business means that savings is the only source they could rely on. We said that this is like unjustified to actually rob off this chance. But why is this as of important, right? Because they said that this is like the only thing that can benefit the COVID-19 restoration quickly. Panels, we think that given the current status quo where everyone is struggling, benefiting the middle and lower class income people doesn't necessarily have to be under the basis that we have to sacrifice the stability of the rich, right? We still think that what's more of like a moral obligation for the government to do is to ensure that every citizen is able to make a stable living even during the midst of the pandemic, and not just by the basis of election votings, right? What they fail to realize is that the major thing that this benefits government's subsidies on COVID is the fact that there is an unjust system and corruption that occurs within the body of government. We think that such things like the Common-Cause conflict is already like a proof to how the government isn't able to handle this money on the very first place. But firstly, panel, this is actually not feasible, right? What government is trying to do is to open more access of these people to be betrayed by the government. We think that with the Common-Cause conflict, people are already losing their trust. We don't see how the rich would actually be willing to be taxed more just because they are more economically qualified. We said that the amount that we need is already sufficient, even with progressive taxing. We already have the free polls from the education minister and the vaccination programs distributed widely for free. We are already progressing, even with just like the taxing that we have. But why is this as of importance, right? We don't see how catering to the dying is exclusive under the set of the house when even government already subsidized those who got COVID, like with the BPJS, for example. And the rich people are the ones who cause and they make it seem like because the rich people are the ones who cause unemployment, they are directly responsible for this. We think that if they are not gaining enough profit in the pandemic, then there wouldn't be any payment to give to this low to middle class people anymore, right, panel? We think that these rich people closing down like jobs and causing like unemployment is their right of security for them to maintain the stability, right? But then on my second clash on how this benefit in the long run, we have told you that we should not reap anyone's economy in the time of crisis, especially if we're talking about the ones that are working as like company owners in major sectors with big businesses. They are very crucial to how the country would recover after the pandemic. We see how these companies are already like one of the access to so many jobs, right? But then what do we get in response? They say that subsidies are not enough, that this is like inexclusive, that the people are still rioting, right? We said that the rioting from the people comes from both classes. It is not exclusive to that of like the middle and lower classes are the ones who are like protesting. We say that the dissatisfaction from society comes from the rich as well. They are feeling this benefit at the moment the government. No, thank you. They're just into letting corruption happen with the Dana battles. But why is this as of important? They wanted to talk about election and how this will actually be a better approach for the government's future election, right? the rich people and major companies are the one who actually help these governments in a way to like invest for projects, for example. We think that the moment we want them to pay more taxes and potentially leaving them to to like an unstable economic as well until they have to like close down their companies or businesses in the worst case scenario, we said that these powerful people are already disappointed to like even vote for these for like voting for these governments, right? But even if government managed to win the majority of the election by the support of the lower and middle class income people, we think it's going to be harder for them to get investments from these rich people and proceed with their governance to build infrastructure, for example, after the pandemic, right? Even if they manage to get elected, we still think the continuity of their performances would be greatly impacted. Not at all feasible to it that they are going to like have good governance in the long run, and like having these kinds of financial supports from big businesses, because the moment where the rich people are uninterested to fund the government in the future, for example, the middle and lower class income people would think that the government have governed the country poorly, not managing to get the investment for infrastructure, for example, and there comes like more riots and dissatisfaction. We are so proud to oppose.
For the third speaker of the opposition team. To close the opposition case, please welcome the reply speaker of the opposition team. The reply speaker, you may speak now.
Okay, am I audible?
Oh, bakit? Sorry.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you
Okay.
are.
Sorry. Okay, starting in 3, 2, 1. First strategic flaws before I move into like the clash that we believe it should be the tipping point of this debate, right? First, we believe that this is the lack of model coming from the proposition side of the house. Panels, I don't know how their mechanism and metrics of being rich and being poor, right? Is it from the money that you have in the bank or the money that you get for your monthly income? There's an unclear explanation coming from the proposition side of the house about which should be categorized as rich and which should be categorized as poor. Second, they frame to you as if that rich people can't profit anything. Like, why profiting is such like an immoral actions, right? Never been explained by all of the three speakers at all. Profiting like is necessary to sustain the business, right? And we have already proven to you like how if they're able to sustain their business, they could actually benefit the lower class. So we believe that actually profiting is not an immoral action. We demand an explanation about why profiting is such an immoral action for them. Third strategic flaws. They say that rich people can exploit the poor. Panels, if they're worrying about like exploitation, etc., we believe that criminal justice system actually do exist, minimum wage actually do exist, right? And this kind of like exploitation is actually untrue, because like they're now suffering not because they're exploited, but because they are now unemployed. But fourth point is that about how we have not heard any clear step-by-step analysis on like how are they going to like guarantee that this welfare will be fairly distributed, because like we have told you the example of like how government could actually just like opt to like corrupt this welfare or the money, etc. We have no like we have this like there is no guarantee that this welfare will actually be fairly distributed to like middle to lower class, right? Now, moving on to my clash, this is about which side of the house will benefit the society more. Now, let's say that we can say that both sides of the house want like better economic for the vulnerable actors, which are the middle to lower class, right? Hence, let's compare how the benefit manifests under both sides of the house. Proposition side of the house proposed that they would aggressively tax the rich to increase their budget so they could help poor people put food on the table. But our side of the house, like we don't want to aggressively tax the rich, so we could not cut even more the capital of the rich people. They can sustain their company, yes, and etc. Right? Now let's compare our benefits. Okay, let's concede that in the short term, proposition could actually create welfare to the poor. But what is important is how they should actually sustain themselves after this pandemic end, because you will not give them support, right? Your support is only come when the pandemic happens. How are you going to guarantee guarantee that these people after the pandemic ends will be able to sustain their life. And if you want to be elected again as government, then you need to help these people during and after the pandemic, right? Because we don't know when the election will happen. It could happen during the pandemic or after the pandemic. If it happens after the pandemic, and if you want to champion or benefit of gaining more support, tell us how you're going to help them in the long term and the future, because there's an opportunity, there's the chance that the election will happen after the pandemic, right? So let's compare our benefits to them. We believe that preservation of job field is something that is not less important than giving them financial support. If they're worried about financial support, then hey, we also give financial support. It is not only exclusive to you, proposition. You're not that special that you're the only one can provide financial support to the middle to lower class people. But the exclusive benefit we have is that we don't reduce the income of the rich. We don't reduce the profit of the company. Therefore, at least the moment they could still reap the profit, they could sustain the company, they don't need to close the company. Let's bite the bullet and concede that even though these rich people income is cut, that they will still still be able to put food in the table. This is not why we're worried. What we are worrying is that exactly because the income is getting less and less, we witness a lot of companies going bankrupt. And this is harming the middle to lower class people as well. Panels in the future, middle to lower class people still need to work. How are they going to work if companies go bankrupt, right? This is the only exclusive benefit under our side of the house. We preserve these rich people income so they could sustain the company. At least in the long term, when the pandemic has ended, middle to lower class we still have a lot of jobs to apply. There are still more jobs filled comparatively under the proposition side of the house. Never been so proud to take this to debate. Whatever happens, Regis will jump in this debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the reply speaker of the opposition team. To close the government case, please welcome the reply speaker of the government.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. So it's pretty clear from the start, right, that opposition's alternative is just a -1 of our proposal. So if we can just prove to you that all of their harms actually are either insignificant or just unlikely to happen, I think it's already clear that we can champion this debate. So I'm going to bring 3 things that in my reply. Firstly, on justification. Secondly, about harms. And lastly, about what's left to be adjudicated by you panels. Firstly, on justification, right? They brought basically 3 things. Firstly, they said that there's no clear delineation between the poor and the rich, right? But how to respond to this? I think it's already pretty clear from my first characterization on what the rich actually looks like in the score, right? These are rich people who don't have that much of an impact that are not impacted that much by the pandemic, right? These rich people who actually who are not affected by, for example, who still have investors, for example, who still have savings, who still have a lot of savings in their bank account, for example, or even just people, or even just rich people who are not affected by the, by grocery clothing in terms of normal government. Opposition is really being dismissive towards their entire characterization, and they just try to run away with it, right? But secondly, they also talk about how the status quo is not enough. How to respond to this? Firstly, well, it's pretty clear that it's not enough, right? They're clearly underestimating from the start, and they already considered themselves that protests are happening right now from 2 parties, and it's already that big, right? So if that's the case, I think they just shot themselves in the leg and told us themselves that the status quo is not enough. We think that is in fact an urgent material, right? But lastly, also said that the government is corruption and it's their fault. How to respond to this? We say, okay, I think that if that's the case, then their side's gonna they'll say students mope and then be sad and emo about it, while we're on the other hand are trying to do something, right? We're not going to just because it's our fault doesn't mean that we have to count our sins and go to church to ask God to forgive us, right? We're actually going to do something. It's like being the rich. instead of what they're doing is that they're going to do nothing and stay status quo right now, where people are still protesting, where people are still not getting fast as they want. We still think that our side is still better and actually, creating a justified action just because the government didn't do anything. Secondly, about harms, right? They brought multiple things, three things. Firstly, they said that rich people can lay off more people in the future right now. How to respond to this? Firstly, at the very least, these people who are actually being laid off are able to maintain themselves in the current present, right? This means that they're able to not, this means that they're able to actually feed themselves and in times of the pandemic, right? They themselves said that just because they're able to put food on the table for themselves, that means not a lot of budget will be actually secreted when they actually not have work, right? That means that this already sufficient enough in actually maintaining the people. Secondly, they also said that rich people will be the next victims or something, or like rich people will, would be bankrupt just because we actually aggressively tax them, right? How to respond to this? Two things. Firstly, unlikely. We already told you on how rich people are actually just people who have luxury, a lot of luxury in that score right now, and how these rich people actually don't get minded, even though that the current taxes actually affect them, right? But secondly, even if that these people are actually, suffering, we still say it's totally okay, right? We told you how we're totally okay, even though we're villainizing these kinds of rich people, because we were told you how these rich people actually have done so many malicious attacks. Well, we still have done many malicious things, and in the past, we still say it's justified, right? Lastly, they also said that protests come from most class. How to respond to this? We think the majority of protests are literally coming from middle to low class, who are literally starving right now, right? So if we can able to cater to that majority, then we already win in terms of protests. So lastly, what's left to be adjudicated, right? Two things. Firstly, let's just engage in a champion case of long-term impacts. We still win in this term, right? Because as a state, we still think that we're much better at getting elected. We still have a much better chance in actually, catering the most majority of people in South Africa right now, right? But this leads to my second thing, but how in the grand scheme of things, we are able to benefit the much vaster majority, which are the middle to lower class. Instead of the 1%, we still think we are able to have comparative advantage. We're able win in comparative. So proud to propose, and we win.
Okay, thank you for the reply, Speaker of the Government. This marked the end of this round of PRODIGY 2021 debate. You all did great, and thank you for participating in today's debate. And for the adjudicator, you can take over from now.
All right, thank you everyone for concluding this amazing debate. I think you should go back to the main debaters hall first, and then we can do the necessary after you enter into the main debaters chambers. The committee, please help the participants to assign back to the debaters hall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Can we have everyone here? Regina Pacis A. Hello?
Here.
Oh, okay, good. Regina Pacis B.
We're here.
All right. So, how is the debate, guys?
Sad.
Seru.
Seru.
Want to have another round? No, I think it's enough.
Enggak deh,
Right?
makasih. Enggak deh.
All right. So, on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to say thank you and express our best gratitude for all of you. Thank you very much for getting through all the rounds, and you are the best out of the best. Since you are the grand finalists and managed to have a very wonderful debate. And congratulations, Regina Pacis, you come out as the winner. Yeah. Okay, so unfortunately, the announcement will be done tomorrow by the committee. So there will be no announcements for this session. But if you have any further feedback, I would be glad to share. So you can contact us, Matthew, me, or Jamila, regarding the overview of the debate. If you want to approach us, I will be happy to share our WhatsApp number. And then you can have a discussion regarding your performance in the grand final round, which we are very happy to share, but not for now, because the announcement will just about to be done tomorrow. So yeah, it's going to be a good surprise. Nonetheless, it is SMA Regina Pacis who is the winner. And once again, on behalf of the organizing committee, we wish you a wonderful journey for your debating career, because I see a very great potential for from you guys. When I was a senior high school, I did not reach that level of English proficiency, let alone your critical thinking. Those are awesome. Keep on debating and join UI afterwards. I'm promoting EDSU, right? So yeah, thank you very much. If you have any further feedback, please approach me, ask my number to the committee, and they will be happy to share with you. And I will share also the WhatsApp number of my colleague. Thank you very much, everyone. And
Thank you,
I will be giving the session back to the MC. Signing off on behalf of the Educators Committee, me Badai. Thank you. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the end of the first day of PRODIGY 2021. The announcement for the winners tomorrow of debate competition as well as junior high school speech will be announced tomorrow in the closing of PRODIGY 2021.
We would like to say thank you for your attendance and participation for this year's PRODIGY. On behalf of the entire committee, we apologize if there are words that are not pleasant. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Izin pamit, Kak.
Terima kasih Nadib.
Terima kasih Nadiem.
Terima kasih.
Bisa keluar. Dadah.
Dadah.
Di
Terima
end
kasih.
juga.